great reminder that we're not alone. We're a super huge global community that keeps growing. And I'm particularly excited to talk about today's event. So if you're new here, this is a series of events where design mentors come together to provide tips and insights into the how-tos and what should I do's of building and navigating a successful career. And today we're super excited to focus on mental health and well-being. But first, let me introduce myself, tell you a little bit about our wonderful community. So hello, my name is Ying. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a lead UX designer at Barris. In my off hours, I mentor here in this wonderful community, as well as co-organizing an inclusive UX community called Ladies That UX Atlanta. So ADPList is a global community for making genuine connections, a platform where people can find, book, and meet mentors from all around the world. And our mission is to foster an inclusive space and support network for designers to come together, learn from each other, and strive to be better. So if you haven't had a chance to check our community out, head over to adplist.org. After this event, we always have awesome new features and functionality and just awesome goodies that come out regularly on the site and for you. Some of our community milestones that we're super proud of, I like to regularly call this our world domination metrics. So since ADPList started, we now have over 4,700 mentors on the platform, leading to over 50,000 one-on-one sessions. We've hosted over 600 events, tackling a variety of topics. And pro tip, a lot of these past events are recorded and available on our YouTube channel. So subscribe if you haven't already. So with our platform touching over 70 countries, we're very proud of the global impact we've had on connecting all of us together. Some house rules, guidelines for this event. This will be recorded and made available. So I hope that answers some of the questions you may already have about this. We have a handy Pigeonhole link, which we will use for Q&A. If you haven't used it before, click on the link, opens up a new site where you can submit and importantly, upvote questions that you want our speakers to tackle. So after the the main part of our event, we'll be looking at your questions. I will be bringing them up for our speakers. Of course, no hate speech or discriminatory behavior. And as is our tradition for every event, we will take a signature selfie or family photo in just a moment. And finally, please share your takeaways on social media by tagging at ADPList and using the hashtag AmazingTogether. All right, photo time. Moshope?
Sure. Hey, everyone. I can see amazing faces on the camera over there. So I think you can start sharing. Thanks. So yeah, thank you so much. So please, even if you can have your cameras on, we'd like to have a group selfies, like, to keep this moment, see these amazing smiles and faces. Thanks, Dominic. Thanks, Tessa. Yes, thanks, Marjorie. Seeing everybody coming up. All right. Let me give some people a few seconds, turn on the cameras. Thank you, Ting, Christy, Zoe, Joseph, Aaron out there. So I'll go through, we have 4 screens. So please, hold that smile, hold that pose, and I'll just go through some of the screens. So 3, 2, 1, screen 1 is down. Thank you. Moving to screen 2, 3, 2, 1. Moving to screen 3, 3, 2, 1, and the final screen. And we're done. Back to you, Ying. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And, shout out to Jamie with her little kitty cat burger. That was very cute. Thank you for sharing that with us. All right, let's get started. So the world is going super fast, especially in the tech industry. It seamlessly leads to burnout and aggravates mental health issues for designers, developers, product managers, anyone who works in the industry. Burnout doesn't look at your level of experience, your role at the organization, or what title you hold. Good mental well-being has a tremendous effect on your state of mind and growth as a professional. Not to mention, it helps make good decisions and help you deal with life's challenges at home, work, and or school. So in this event, let's look at some strategies to fight burnout and be mindful with Rob Serency, who's a freelance UX lead and director, and Div Manikam, who is a mentor, author, explorer, and a returning speaker to our event. So warm welcome to our speakers. And so heads up, don't forget that Pigeonhole link in the chat, which you can start, submitting questions to our speakers now. So with that, Dev and Rob, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you all, and thank you, ADPList. It's always an honor and a privilege to be here. I hope you can all see my screen.
Yep.
I want to also take this opportunity, this being our May Mental Health, Mental Wellbeing Month, for understanding that what we're going through, it's not something that we go through alone. The community has been a big part of my healing. So I just wanted to say thank you all for that. And I'll kick it right off. So I'm Div Manikam, a mentor, author, and an explorer, all three in one. You'll see a theme of three throughout. And my life journey has probably taught me a lot of things, but one is understanding what true career success means for me and how that impacts my own mental well-being. So I'm excited to kind of share our journey as well as our stories, tips, and tricks that we have learned over the past couple of years. My core values are inspire, influence, and impact. And I think that as much as our three words has grounded me and also helped me become who I am and who I want to be. I think there's a big difference in how you perceive yourself and then how you decide you want to actually be. Stress and anxiety, mindfulness, essentialism, diversity, and belonging have been three core tenets of my life for the past 3 years, and something that I'm a big advocate for. I made a promise to myself when I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder in Feb 2020, right before the pandemic, that life is more than just work, and also understanding that we need a good balance. So for me, photography has been that. You will see it throughout my presentation. Somehow flowers calm me. I even remember my first week after I went to the doctor, and he was like, "You look better already. What did you do?" And I said, "I just went long walks in San Francisco and I took flower photos." And somehow that seems to be healing me in some way. To share my journey, I wrote a book called A Broken Teacup, Filling the Cracks with Mindfulness, Essentialism, and Self-Care. Primarily, it was my promise to help folks like me who are going through the same challenges, but really don't even know that we can actually heal together and not feel like you're by yourself in this. And my second book was about authentic leadership. All right, so keep going. I, for the past 5 years, have been asking this question about Ikigai, what's my purpose? Why am I here? And I realized being mentor is my purpose, my mission. The only thing that has been fulfilling for me over the past few years has been that. And so I want to thank ADPList for this opportunity, because I would have been lost without you all, to be honest. When I embarked on my journey with taking care of myself and understanding what's important in life, it's one of those things that, and the reason why I have the metaphor broken teacup is I realized that I had to embrace a few ways of understanding what's important for me. And so reading books, understanding some of these concepts called wabi-sabi and kintsugi, understanding that it's not that we are broken in some way, it's just that it's who we are, and the world is just catching up to know that what we go through, our experiences, all are part of the bigger picture. I love the concept of kintsugi because it talks about embracing your flaws and imperfections, and it gives you a new venue to think about who you are and what your true value is. And that's why I think having communities like this also help, because it gives you a sense of where you are and where you want to go. And wabi-sabi is the concept of understanding that there is a lot of transience in life. And I think when I look at the seasons, it is a constant reminder for me that everything around us, from nature to everything in between, everything's changing for a reason. And if we don't bring practices like that in life, and if we don't know how to appreciate what's there right now. So today, this is my little joy. It's 5:30 a.m. in the morning here, but I'm wide and awake even after a 50-hour travel and transit, making my way from the US to India last night. So thank you all for this opportunity indeed. I wanted to introduce all of you to my council. So initially I knew that when I think about my well-being. I initially thought I had one voice in my head, then I realized I actually have many. And so I want to introduce you to my counsel. My first one is Negative Nancy, where she's always telling me what's wrong, and never focuses on anything positive. Worrisome Will is always worrying about the next thing or the next decision. Overthinker Bob is overanalyzing to justify everything that I do. So does even my decisions to come to India and to figure out how I want to make the next choices in my life. Overthinker Bob did its best job. Oh my goodness, I cannot even, maybe that's another whole episode of how that got the best of me. But then I always have positive Pam, where I know I got this, where I know I don't need all the answers. And I've tried to take the concept of one day at a time. So today's another beautiful day. And I'm privileged to be here with all of you. These are a few things that have helped me over the past 2 years. I realized that for me, sleep is number one. Whenever sleep gets impacted, I know it's time for me to change my job or change the environment because something's not working and I'm not paying attention to what my body, what my mind and soul are trying to tell me. Balanced nutrition, intermittent fasting has helped me. So figuring out what helps you and what's important. I do love the comments about how walks can actually have such a profound effect on us. Best thing to do always. I make sure every day I go for a 30-minute walk or at least 1 hour if I can, and exercise, right? It doesn't have to be that you have to be a gym fanatic. You can find different ways of doing exercise. For me, that's a walk. And I literally have on my calendar walk to remember so that I actually take the time to do it myself. And then also focusing on memory because I realized that I had hit burnout. Nobody had told me that this was happening. And I was going through a lot of stress and anxiety. I didn't know how to take care of it. I didn't know what I needed to do. And so I started embracing the philosophy of one day at a time so that I could focus on the now, so I could be fully present, so I could appreciate what life's miracles are. And that's where mindfulness, essentialism, and self-care became my way of opening myself, my heart, my mind, and soul to the flow of the universe. And these were books that have been a core to who I am. It has helped me ground myself. It has also helped me learn what's important and what's not. And you'll see books are in different ways, different schedules, all of these things. The Alchemist is probably the one that has changed my life. I felt like The Alchemist was following me in Raleigh in different shapes and forms. But yes, these books have guided me, have given me a direction. And I call this the bibliotherapy. So if there is one thing that can help all of us, it is finding books that can give you comfort. Felix, I would highly recommend reading The Alchemist in your travels if you are interested. It's one whirlwind of a book for sure. And with that, I will pass it over to Rob, because if you think of where we are and where we want to go, it is a matter of understanding right now where you are and what's the change you want to bring. Over to you, Rob.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for dedicating your time to be with us here today, whether it be your morning, evening, or afternoon. So we really appreciate it. Hi, my name is Rob Cernsey. I am a freelance designer and very similar to Div, outdoor photography and mental health, which I'll get to in a second. I am going on 12 plus years experience, having been really fortunate to work with some top of product companies and agencies in the tech industry. And now I am sharing my knowledge with you all and really happy to be here. And so where mental health comes into play for me is in a couple of phases, and we'll get into this, but in 2015, my job was the center of my life. I really established my self-importance around it. I really dedicated myself to the job. And what it resulted was very high-end anxiety and depression. I would be going to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, taking like enough sleeping medicine to knock out a horse. But I would be so stressed out because I had a client meeting that I had to go to. You know, I would be the lead on projects, so people depended on me. And it broke me. I left work crying. I left work kind of like just not feeling myself. But like oddly enough, I did that for so long because I self-identified with it. So I left that job, quit, didn't have one, took time off, traveled like a lot of people, and then I started to work again. Um, and then it went into my personal life. So in 2017 and 18, I went through some rough, dark periods. During my personal life, I got to the point where my anxiety was taking over, and I knew exactly how I was going to commit suicide, and I wanted to harm myself. So I didn't really know what to do. My personal life was fucked up, and so excuse my language, and then so also my working life. So very similar to Div, I went full force into outdoor photography. And so if you go into the next slide, what that turned into was something that blossomed into a kind of side persona, if you will. So I have a little kind of photography brand set up called Tomorrow's Ventures. And in it, I've always traveled, but especially the outdoors and photography really helped me. You know, I took what was the darkest period of my life and channeled it into one of the most positive things that I could think of. And that was capturing some of the moments that I was going with my friends. So like remote beaches in the Philippines to mountains in Alaska. You know, one thing that was the saving grace was photography. And so what's really great and what's really awesome, very similar to the community here, once you find like-minded individuals, you all just like attach to each other like wildfire, and it's a very positive, impacting experience. So as I was developing my photography practice, I came across a lot of good people. And so if you go to the next slide. So ever since 2018, one more. Yeah. Ever since 2018, myself and a group of our photographers, we threw on, you know, we sold prints, we did a lot of different things, but the two highlights of the last 5 years for myself is I managed 2 group photography shows, one of which was sponsored by LinkedIn. And during this 5-year span, we've raised over $10,000 for nonprofits and charities specifically focused on mental health. So this was great because, you know, during the darkest times of my life, I didn't know how to combat mental health, but what I did know is how to take a good photo, sell it for charity, and then give that money to people who did it professionally. So, but if we fast forward to the next slide, I was faced with another challenge. In 2020, I took another hit, very similar to a lot of people. One, we were thankful for the people that work in tech that we got to keep our jobs, right, and work from home. But like a lot of folks, my home environment wasn't set up to spend as much time. At the time, my partner's dad had cancer. And so we were very hesitant to even step outside because we thought going to the grocery store would kill us. So I got fucked up in the head again, 3rd time's a charm, they say. And so what I did was I picked up all my belongings and I came over to Alaska. And so this is a place that I came to in 2018 because of my photography work. And I fell in love with the place. And ever since I've been here, I've been able to kind of, you know, spread out, get outside a lot more, you know, very similar to Div, you know, make sure I'm mindful of the time that I spend. And happy to report that through a whole bunch of therapy and a lot of medication, we are very mindful and stable. But, you know, one thing to take away from this is obviously these are extremes in some cases. But one of the things that's really important is to recognize kind of what creates those down spirals for yourself, trying to figure out those little day-to-day things that can really help you with that. And then ultimately, you know, kind of act on them or seek professional help if you would like. But your mental health is now more important than ever, especially during today's times when, you know, it's no longer about what's going on in the world as much as there is right now, but it's also almost as important to understand what's happening to you internally and making sure you address that so you can kind of keep your center and, you know, help flourish in your day-to-day life. So that's it.
Thanks so much for sharing that introduction with us, but chock full of your history. And Rob, thank you so much for sharing a piece of your past with us too. You touched on one of the first questions I want to ask, which is, of course, it's, you know, since 2020, the world has completely changed. And I know it's been like 2 years past. And for some people, it might be like business as usual, like back to normal. But we all are completely changed by it. And it's really important to acknowledge that in our day to day too, not just in the whole grand scheme of things. So I'm curious to hear if you're willing to share, like, since that time, 2 years ago, what has been kind of the ups and a little bit of the ups and downs, or just lessons learned too, if you're okay with sharing that,
Yeah.
today. Yeah, Robbie, if you want to start.
So in general, I would say the biggest thing for me that has changed was, I made a note, even though I've been able to create a better working environment, my career was very centered in my life. So my life was centered around my career. Moving to Alaska and really making such a bigger commitment to myself changed how I look at my career. So no longer am I trying to fit my life around my career. I'm trying to fit my career around my life, if that makes sense. So while it's important to stay driven, you always want to stay driven in a career. And I think in people in tech, that's like the utmost thing. Whatever you need to do, my family and friends are so much more important to me. I want to make a living. I want to make sure that I can still sustain the life that I want, but the career is no longer the drive. It's a drive, but it's now centered around the bigger importance of my life in general. On a more day-to-day, what's really worked is more time boxing, understanding where your job fits in your day-to-day life. And it's okay if you want to work really hard. But it's important to know that, you have other things outside of work that really drives you and makes you a whole person, because then that really puts work into perspective, what's helped you figure out how to best dedicate time to one or another.
That's awesome. And then Div?
100%, Rob. I think understanding that we are important as we are, and understanding that what we do matters a lot more, who we are with, how we spend our time. I believe there's only one currency that matters at this point, that's time. That's one thing you can never get back. Money comes and goes. And with Rob sharing his journey with his career, I went through similar in 2020, where I moved states to go from San Francisco to Raleigh, which probably helped me ground myself, helped me find myself again. There was a lot of rediscovery, trying to understand who am I, what matters, what doesn't matter. And I started following essentialism, which was my way of peeling away everything that's in my life and saying, what is really essential for me? And I think that word was so important at that time while we were going through the pandemic. It just stuck. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to figure out what is essential for me and focus on that, and not really worry about everything around me or the things that I thought was important, but it wasn't really important. Like I shared my photos on Unsplash and everything. It is a part of who I am. It doesn't matter where I'm going, like whether I'm going for a 10-minute walk or a 15-minute or a 1 hour or 2 hour walk, I'm taking photos no matter where it is. And I've been very fortunate to be in places to appreciate it. And people will be like, wow, you take really good photos. And I'm like, oh, that's the Google Pixel. It does a good job, or something along those lines. But trying to understand what your mind, body, and soul are telling is very important. And just because you figured it out once doesn't mean we've got it all right. I realized that the hard way when I changed jobs and then got to a place where I thought, okay, this is where I want to be. I didn't realize the environment that I joined was very stressful. And I realized that I'm very hypersensitive. So depending on how the environment is, I tend to absorb all of that negativity and all that, internalize that in some shape or form. 3 months into the job, we had our first offsite. This was the first time I was going to fly in 2 years. And I made it to Chicago, and I was walking on the waterfront, and I realized that something wasn't right. I wasn't feeling myself. I was like, okay, I need to sit down, was the last thing I could remember. I blacked out, fell, scarred my face, only to realize that everything that I'd put in the past year, all the rules, all the philosophy, essentialism lifestyle that I had, making sure I work 8 to 4 and not beyond that, making sure that I have my breaks, that I go for my walks, everything fell out the window. And I was like, Div, what did you do? Like, you said you figured it out and you just didn't. And I had all of my counsel come and eat my head. I was very fortunate, and I was very adamant with my doctor that I'm not going to take any medication. And so I found ways through community, through healing, through my family supporting me, through books, to help me find myself and understand what's important. So that, I think, is what grounds us, right? Being fully present. I was very big fan of having 100 tabs open. Now, if I only have one screen open right now. You all are my main center focus right now. And that, I think, has changed how I perceive a lot of things. So I'll share the link if anyone's interested to see what my journey has been and how I was able to kind of put some of those disciplines in place to guide me through the process.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And also, I feel like personally called out about the 100 tabs because it's a very bad digital habit that I have as well. But it sounds like you both have a different kind of regimen or just path that has worked well for you personally. And one of the similarities I did hear from both of you is this change of environment too, particularly, moving to a different city. And I would like to hear a little bit more about how that kind of physical change in environment can really impact you. And to also speak to if you're someone that may not be able to change their environment, like what kind of tools or tips can they still practice to have that effect for themselves?
You want to go ahead first, Liv?
Sure. Yes, not everyone's fortunate. I think when I moved during the pandemic, folks were like, wait, what? You moved during the pandemic from one coast to the other? And that was the best decision I could have done for taking care of myself. I would joke with friends. I would be like, I saw the squirrels this morning and the bunnies. And people were like, what? You didn't have squirrels in San Francisco? And I was like, I was way too busy to even notice. Even when I used to go for my walks, I would either have a podcast or listen to music. So I wasn't really present with the environment that I was. And I think that made a big difference. So you don't have to change cities. You don't have to change neighborhoods even. You could be right where you are and you start noticing things. That's what being fully present means to me. You could be looking at things a different way. Like if you're walking the same street every day, and one day instead of walking on the left of the street, you walk on the right, you'll see a new perspective. And that has probably been the central thing. It's nothing big or beyond that for me. It's just trying to see it in a different lens in the camera, the photography way of trying to appreciate what's around you. And I say my squirrels are my friends now because they're there every morning. Even with our masks, we would go when I go for my walk, I'm saying good morning to people, and that would lift me up. Somebody just smiled and said good morning. That's like a big change. That didn't quite happen as much as I would have liked in San Francisco because I was in my own head. I was in my own zone. I didn't really pay attention. Now I don't take any, I don't really need music anymore or something to just get the voice out of my head because I've started listening to the voice in my head and started understanding that it was telling me what I needed to know, but I wasn't ready to accept it or even listen to it. So at first, I thought something was wrong when I went through my stress and anxiety, when I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, and I realized there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that the world hasn't understood its impact. And I think through the past 2 years, we have all started seeing its effects, and we're all starting to open up and share because I think that is the biggest power that we all have. Over to you, Rob.
Yeah, cool. No, thanks. I really appreciate that. I definitely echo a lot of the things that Div has mentioning. I think it's really important. And for the record, I love San Francisco. As much as it was a change for me. Spent 11 years there. My family's there. My partner's there. We have a daughter on the way. So there's so many things there, but at the same time, it's more about changing your scenery. So obviously not everybody is fortunate to or have the means to kind of change up their entire environment, but what you can do is really find, like, really try and figure out ways to get outside your comfort zone. And I know that might sound cliche, but like doing things by yourself is a really good thing. And so as COVID has really made us, we had to deal with a lot of ourselves. So, if you're comfortable with it, go see a movie by yourself. If you're okay with going out to eat, go to dinner by yourself, take a walk by yourself, take a drive. There's a lot of ways in which you can decompress mentally. But the one thing that really does help is really making sure you're able to cut work off and then go outside and pursue other things. So really challenging yourself to not do that extra thing or answer that extra message or answer that extra email. Make a commitment to yourself to really figure out a way where you can, still be productive, but within a controlled set amount of time, then close it and then just go do something else. If you're going to be, one of the things that was really bothersome was I spent 10 years in the same neighborhood in San Francisco. I did the same exact thing every day. When COVID hit, it got even worse. I didn't really go outside, had the same thing. I would just do the same thing over and over. Honestly, one thing that I really did was just break my morning habit. Instead of like waking up and going directly to coffee and opening my laptop, spending an hour to read the news or to take a 30-minute walk outside. I have a dog, so that kind of makes me have to go outside. So, but one of the things is figure out ways to break your routine, and also like try doing things by yourself for yourself. It can go a long way. Sometimes being by yourself can be a little uncomfortable, but I found the most rewarding moments have been when I'm just with myself and can figure out more about what makes me kind of balance out in that manner. So, yeah.
I love that. And I feel like a lot of people are plus oneing and echoing that same sentiment of how nourishing it is to do things by ourselves, to enjoy the things that we enjoy by ourselves, because it's so, it's just for us, it's for us to focus on. And another like similar thing or theme that I've heard from both of you is these actions that you recommend taking. It really is like a focus on the senses, right? Kind of pulling a little bit away from our mental thoughts and the 100 things that are going on up here, and really focusing on the world around you, your sights, your smells, your tastes and touch. And that can be so grounding, and putting yourself in a different path or a different routine, like you said, Rob, to then kind of experiencing it for the first time. It's like reading your favorite book or watching your favorite movie for the first time. You're kind of soaking in all the details because it's very new and it's very grounding. So there's themes going on here.
The last thing, if you weren't obsessed with TV shows, holy crap. All the streaming services, even if you subscribe to just one, they power their content. So like get hooked on shows. It's the visual version of a book. I don't read, unfortunately. But yes, getting hooked on shows is such a great distraction. Anyway, I'm a TV junkie. So
now I love that you were advocating for like more streaming, more content. For me, it's YouTube. Like I'll say like, oh, I can't do a movie, but then I end up watching like 4 hours of like just YouTube clips on autoplay too. So gotta pick and choose your little bit of like chocolate and poison. I appreciate you, sharing the love that you have for San Francisco, for SF. And as we all know, SF is a huge, tech industry hub. So are other cities. And I would like to hear in terms of, the tech industry, the design community, we're so passionate about what we do that sometimes we get absorbed into it. So how do you feel like the tech industry may slowly shift or change with this reckoning of the past 2 years of a focus on our own personal well-being and how that's reflected in our work life? How do you think things may change, if you could hypothesize or, guess in terms of our future?
Yeah, it's not just the tech industry. I think how we work is going to change. And it all starts with us as individuals. It starts with us as leaders. My biggest accomplishments in my past 2 years has been whenever a team member will be like, Div, I actually stopped work at 6 p.m. I stopped taking those calls. I stopped taking another meeting because somebody needed something. That would be my proudest moment. The second would be when people were like, hey, I saw that you had an open calendar and you were transparent where you were, when you were. And I had my breakfast, my lunch, my dinner to my walks to remember on my calendar, because I wanted my team to feel comfortable that they could take a time off during work hours to actually just ground yourself, because in the back of your mind is working irrespective of whether you're in front of the screen or not. And you need some off-screen time. I believe that even the whole concept of 9 to 5, the concept of working 5 days a week is going to change. Those are all much needed. I believe Henry Ford, when he came up with the 9 to 5 concept, one of the things I read in a book, so don't quote me, is that he had a prediction that with all the technology, with all the efficiency we'll get, we'll only need to work 20 hours a day or 20 hours a week. But fast forward to now, we ended up working over 60 hours a week. And that is what's caused burnout. That is what's causing all the stress and anxiety, because our body, our mind is not meant to do the things that we are pushing ourselves to do the way we are. And that is probably the only thing that I would hope that more companies, I've started seeing companies take the time. I know when I started putting no meeting Wednesdays on my calendar and I started advocating for it in my company, when the pandemic hit, they adopted that policy. And I remember my chief of staff telling me, Div, you were 2 years ahead of this. And I was like, yes, I think I wish I was maybe 10 years ahead, because then I wouldn't have hit my burnout and I wouldn't have had to go to a doctor to be like, what's wrong with me? Tell me, like, I've done all the tests, everything looks good. I'm healthy, I'm well, but I don't feel like myself, right? So even just having a manager, because I remember when I went and told my manager, he was like, Div, you're starting your day, take a month off, come back and see how you feel. And knowing that you have a support system like that, I know it was very difficult for me to leave I was like, oh, I have a project next week. Let me finish that project and then I'll take my time off. And I remember my friend saying, Dave, if you had a flu, would you wait till next week? Like, just take your time off. Like, don't, like, understand that we all have that as an option. I didn't know I had that option until my doctor gave me I think it's called the FMLA or something along those lines, where you can take personal medical leave if you need it, just like you would for someone in your family. And that has probably helped me find myself again and not lose myself. So I'm definitely grateful for that.
Wherever you are in the grid, yes, what she said. The last point, very, very important. Put yourself first. I'll get into like a different perspective in a moment, but the last point you said, towards the end of 2021, I was working at LinkedIn, and nothing but the most incredible people there. I lost the number of times that I cried in front of my managers, in front of my coworkers, my team members, to the point where I sat in front of a computer for like hours on end, not doing anything and just staring at a screen. Where I'm coming with this was that I was broken. So I needed, for my own sanity, to take time off without any hesitation. And like echoing a good manager, without any hesitation, I told them I needed to take time off. And obviously like they knew what was up with me. Within half a day, my entire team was able to figure out how to share my workload for me to take 2 weeks off and turn off my things in general. So having a super positive, supporting team member and team around you is really important, especially now. So in terms of like how things are going to change, it's like twofold. One's personal and then the other's business. So on the personal side, we are very fortunate to be able to use creativity to help solve challenges and to get paid for that, right? That's very much in a sense what we do. Unless you are creating your own experience, your own tool, whatever it may be, you are using your creative skills for a business. that primary function of that business, whether it be the only people that don't really get to say that is nonprofits, but if you work for a for-profit company, their job is to make money. No matter how you do it, you can agree with what they do, you can align to what their value is, and then that's good. That's like the signal of a good job. But once you start to recognize that your services or skills that you are doing are helping a company make money, the way you perceive how you do your work and what it's value for helps you understand that it's just a job at the end of the day, right? And again, only if you work on your own thing, it's a little bit different, but you literally are helping a company make money. And so once you kind of put that in perspective in a really simplistic form, you tend to, at least that was the mind shift that helped me, where I wasn't working that 15th hour. I wasn't like doing like that one pixel is going to be there tomorrow morning, you know? So once I understood that my services was being used to make money in some way that I agreed to do, obviously, like I liked my job. And once you understand that it's not so much of a part of who you are, but it's more about, a job and a business, that helped me put things a little bit more in perspective. Now, when it kind of relates to a business, again, at the end of the day, businesses' jobs are to provide an environment for each individual to do their best work. Now, when individuals do their best work, that results in higher quality work, which results in a bigger bottom line, right? So now I think companies are shedding their historical ways about conducting business and adapting to how they can get people to do their best work and be at their happiest. And like Div was saying, it's changing the whole entire working force, right? You might do 4x10s, you might do 4-day weeks, you might do hybrid work schedules or in office or whatever. So I think companies are noticing that the definition of a happy employee is becoming more visible. And the last 2 years have sucked in terms of working from home, but it has provided some value. And I think companies are trying to figure out a way to adapt some of the practices that they've done throughout COVID in order to continue to have a happy workforce. Now, like what's really, I had a point to say about that, but I forgot. That's about it. I'm going to end there because, yeah.
No, it's very grounding, right? It's realistic to understand that we are all more than the job that we do, the role that we have, the title that we have at a company, and to understand that as much as we love what we do, it is still also a transaction, business transaction of, goods and services for value paid. And that's something that I learned from one of my mentors as well, where they had said, it's a little morbid, but they said that, X company is not going to be standing there over your grave when you die, right? Your friends and your family will.
Nobody's going to give a fuck about what's in your bank account. Nobody's going to care about how financially stable you may or may not be or whatever. The time that I spend with my family and friends are what I are going to cherish day to day, year to year, month to month. So as you said, it's great. Like I don't want my comments to make a job sounds mundane and boring, but it's just more so putting things in context so you can understand how it fits into your whole entire life and dedicate the time where you find most valuable.
Absolutely. And I want to do a quick time check. I want us to be able to get to as many of our audience questions as well. So as I ask these, let's see if we can make them a little concise so we can get to as many as we can. So first one is, how do you take things one day at a time, but also still plan for your career path and for your future? How do you find that like balance each day? Div?
Sure. And I just responded to that as well. I think
great.
For me, the biggest one has been keeping that focus of what you can do right now. I think I was very good at worrying about the past, worrying about the future, and realizing that the only thing we can control is this moment right now. And that's pretty much it. One of the things that helped me understand what my career path, what my future, and what the priority is for me has been personal OKRs. So just like companies have business objectives and key results, I put together what I call my personal OKRs to help me understand what's important and where do I want to go. I'll share the link as well with all of you, but it's been an exercise that helped me understand what's important. I call it my top 10 list, if you will. It has made sure that I'm not just doing things because I thought I had to, but I was doing things because it actually mattered to me. And one of the things in that top 10 list is mentoring. It was writing a book, just knowing that I wanted to finish a book in 2021 when I left my job in November. I had 2 months, 2021 wasn't going to come back. And I was like, I'm going to do this. I didn't know what self-publishing meant. I didn't know anything, but just that focus and clarity, I was in a state of flow, as Csikszentmihalyi talks about it. And I didn't even know I had that in me. Because I was very good at multitasking. I took pride in going from meeting to meeting and being like, I can be everywhere. Like, that's not the goal of life. Your goal is to be here in the now, and that's pretty much it. So if you can figure that part out and make sure you're considering that as part of what's important for you, that's all. Like, one day at a time has been the golden rule that will guide me through my life.
Focusing on the present.
And just to add really quickly to that, always having somebody to aspire to be, you know what I mean? Like, no matter how many years experience you have, I'm always looking for a mentor, and I'm always like idolizing people who I really admire their background and their career. So that may not like give you, the answer right then and there, but it does help you understand how somebody of that role or that responsibility is influencing their work and the community in that manner. And so always having a mentor or somebody to look up to, whether that be in your job or outside your job, is really helpful, especially if you want to try and figure out how to materialize and visualize what down the road looks like.
It's awesome. Yeah. And having mentor or a resource to kind of help you, crowdsource a bit of that like future planning so that you can like also focus on your present. It's awesome. All right, next question is, any advice for those who feel unmotivated / tired outside of work because it takes up so much of your life? I know 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week is a privilege, but it can still feel like drudgery nonetheless. I relate.
I would say self-talk is very powerful. As part of my mentoring with Draper University, I met 2 amazing women in Europe who are helping us change our self-talk. I think a lot of what we do, how we prioritize ourselves, comes to the stories we tell ourselves and the stories we tell others. So trying to understand that, I took their initiative program. I was like, okay, I need to change my self-talk. Like, how do I do it? And so I went through that exercise, understanding that half the things that I tell myself is not true, and half of them don't really matter because it never comes to that worst case scenario. Even as I was telling Ying and Rob, my journey over the past 2 days, coming from the US to India with my 15-hour flight getting canceled to getting rerouted to getting to home has been a journey, but I felt like I was there, and I knew a lot of people were frustrated and angry and everything, and I was too, but I actually felt proud that I did well in terms of like managing my emotions. I was good all the way until my family called and they were like, how are you doing? And then I burst into tears in the airport lounge and I was like, I'm okay. Actually, I was okay until you guys called, and I was like, I was holding myself up for the past 24 hours, and I was like, I haven't really slept, but I'm doing okay, right? Like, just knowing that you have people to ask you that question and taking that time off is not a privilege. I know a lot of people say, I have to take care of family, I have elderly or folks that I need to take care of. I don't have time to take care of myself. The reality is, if you don't take time to take care of yourself, you're not helping yourself, you're not helping your team, you're not helping your family, you're not helping your community. And it has a trickling effect, which is what we're seeing right now through the pandemic. So just take time for yourself. It's not a privilege, it is your right at this moment.
The most productive thing to do, well, The most productive thing to do is not be productive. That means like step away. You'd be surprised of how quickly you're able to compensate for the work that you think you're missing out on when you have a fresh mind, fresh perspective. So whatever stepping away looks like for you, if you feel yourself staring at a computer, you're doing more damage than good by continuing through that mindset versus kind of coming back to it at fresh mind.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like kind of cramming before like a test or something. Like it's not going to stick. You need that reprieve, that time out to like let things soak in, and then that's when you can work at your best. So really important to find those pockets throughout the day so you can feel like yourself. And I mentioned this in the chat earlier, but like for me, I have to schedule my breaks, which sounds really lame, but it's a nice reminder. If it's there, then it's likely that I will do it. I can turn it into a checklist if you're a type A person that likes to check things off. But it's one of those things where like you have to prioritize that, because your manager may tell you, or someone on your team may tell you, but you are the first person that will take stock of the day, how you start the day. If you're feeling great, energetic, tackle like 5 things, or it's one of those days where I just want a small day, I'll tackle like the 2 most important things. I'll share that with my team to let them know, and kind of go from there, making that a normal conversation to have, so it's not just all on your shoulders. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Let's see. Oh, so Yulia Co had asked, what are your, I guess we're very relevant. What are your day-to-day things that help you? They're very interested in examples. So I mentioned a calendar. Any additional like actions that you take? Well, Rob just disappeared. Oh,
that is so
there's
adorable.
your answer. Wait, where's
there's
if
the
we're doing
answer.
that.
If you have the chance, COVID puppies are a huge thing. This is Tofu. I've had her for 6 years. She is my life. So if you ever have a chance, please consider adopting or getting an animal. They are wonderful. She just woke up. She's pissed, but along with checklists and everything,
same here.
This one helps for sure.
Yes, this is Marley. She's a great reminder for me to go on a walk and pay attention to her. So after a tough meeting, I'll literally just turn around and I just like smush my face on her face. But yes, if you're in a great, if you're in a spot in your life where you feel like you can be, responsible for a little furry one, then, they take up a great spot in your heart, and they're a great reminder to focus on yourself. Okay, thank you for that. Next one is, let's see. This one's from Paolo. They asked, do you ever feel like you risk opportunity / career progression by taking time out? So this kind of opportunity cost of like, what happened? What would I risk if I do choose to prioritize myself?
I think you prioritize yourself and your life over work has probably been my biggest change. I thought climbing the career ladder was who I am. And I realized that when I worked on my personal OKRs in 2018, becoming somebody on that career ladder mattered to me. Right now, if I look at my OKRs, it doesn't. And so as people change, your priorities change. If your priorities are in line with who you want to be, it'll work out and you'll find the way for it. That's at least my understanding as of this point. I'm still learning. I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity to meet so many people around the world through mentoring that I probably wouldn't have had. I do love to travel, and I thought traveling was and is my center of being. But I got to experience that through folks around the world in the past few years. And I would never change anything that I'm doing to do that, right? There were points in my career where I felt bad that I was doing mentoring because I was doing some of those during my work time. And I had to remind myself that I'm not doing anything wrong, that taking the time for the community, for helping others is who I am and who I want to be. So I made the choice to not go up the corporate ladder and actually focus on me and the community. So that's a little bit about my story. Rob?
Hell yeah, I missed out on opportunity. But I think if you're driven and you are a hard worker, those opportunities are going to come. if those opportunities came because I put in 15 hours consistently, hell no, I don't want that job. Like, I want to be promoted. I want it to be moving at the pace that I'm comfortable with. You know, obviously there's going to be times in which you're going to work harder than others, but if getting a promotion means I got to overextend myself just to reach a new level, hell no. That's more time away from her. You know?
All right, we got to maximize more time with tofu, not minimize. That's your OKR. It's a great point. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, with that, I think we were out of time. Unfortunately, I feel like we can turn this fireside chat into forever thing, but we got to respect the time that we've set for this event, and so that we can also step away and then focus on ourselves. See what I did there? So with that, I want us all to go crazy in the chat. Thank our speakers, Div and Rob, for sharing not only their time, but their wisdom and their personal stories with us. I hope this was super helpful for you all for joining us. You got some tips and tricks. And remember, it's just one step at a time. It's not a huge thing that you got to tackle right now. It's just the present moment, one checklist item to do at a time, and then trusting your future self that that the steps that you're putting in right now, the work that you're doing, you're focusing on right now to set a healthy work-life balance and mental well-being is going to pay dividends and really help you out in the future. Okay, Div and Rob, besides your ADPList mentor profiles, anywhere else that our audience can follow you or come check you out? Rob, I put in the link to your photography site on the chat as well. So make sure I had that. Anywhere else where people can find you in the internet?
LinkedIn, yeah, there are different ways to find us. We are really privileged to be here. So thank you all for joining us today. It makes us believe that we're doing the right thing, sharing our stories and letting folks know that you're not alone, letting folks know that we can all heal together. So thank you, everyone. And have a wonderful rest of your day, and definitely take it one day at a time. The world will be there right with us as long as we find ourselves.
Awesome. Thank you so much for those parting words. With that, everybody, please be well, be happy. We'll see you next time. And with that, we'll sit here as you walk away from us. This is always the awkward at the end. I wish we had some outro music, but goodbye, everybody. We'll see you all soon. We'll have another event next month. Yeah, Michelle, babe, we need like a chill outro.
Yeah.
I feel like this is the rolling credits over your face. Like we can silent talk.
I love the music in the beginning. We could just keep jamming with that. I was like,
yeah.
Wide awake. So thank you for that music for sure.
No worries.
And then Robin did.
Thank you so much for thank you so much for inviting us. This is my first event and I loved it. Yeah, it was so good. Hopefully the cursing was okay.
Yeah, everyone.